I'm Andy from Dynolight Racing. Just going to give you a little video on our steering dampers. These have been out a couple of years now, and quite a few people have got them, so I thought it was about time that told you a bit about them and showed you how to take them apart and to service them. So the reason I designed different steering dampers is because a lot of people were having problems with play. So the push rod was moving in and out on their dampers, and it was throwing the steering all over the place. So when you're trying to stay in a lane on a track and you've got a tiny amount of play here, then the front wheel, a slight movement, and the chair just will not track in a straight line. That was the main reason behind it. And then when I looked at the steering dampers that are on the market, none of them were particularly easy to service. So that was the main theory behind it. So this is what I end up coming up with. Give you a quick rundown on what it is. You've got your machined aluminium main body, which is in three pieces: the tail cap, the main cap here, and also this nut, this locking nut. These are all machined out of solid, so it'd be 6082 aluminium. The push rod is all machined in one piece, which is made out of titanium. The rod ends, had a lot of problems sorting out rod ends. Couldn't find aluminium rod ends with a 5mm bore, which also works quite nicely with the 3/16, which is used over in America, the imperial equivalent. So ended up having to make our own rod ends. So the aluminium casings we have made up, or the bodies we have made up, and then we buy the spherical bearings, which are then pressed into the aluminium casings. What you'll find with these that you won't find on any others, this end is your normal right-handed thread, but this one is a left-handed thread. Undoes in the opposite direction to what you would normally find. So this one here, your standard direction, turning it right to do it up, whereas this one here, turning it left to do it up. So the theory behind this is exactly the same way that the steering is done on cars to adjust. So when you've got this end attached to your compensator, this end attached to your fork, what you don't need to do to adjust the length of the steering damper is to take the bolt out of one of the ends, remove the damper from the fork, revolve your rod end to make your steering damper either longer or shorter, put it back in, bolt it all up. It's a lot of aggravation. So the reason for the left-handed thread this end, right-handed this end, fix it into here, so I can show you. It's a little bit awkward to hold both ends and turn the centre. So that's attached to your compensator. This end's attached to your fork. Undo the little half nuts. There's one here and here. So they're called either half nuts or locking nuts. Move those down away from the rod ends, and then when you revolve the steering damper, the two rod ends either come closer together or further apart. And then when you've reached the setting that you like, it's just a case of moving the lock nuts down on either end, and then it's two 8mm spanners, one on here, the other one on the locking nut, and then lock the two together. And the same with this end. Just turn this around a little bit. One spanner there, the other spanner on the half nut, and lock them together. So if we just release them for now, I'm going to show you how to strip the damper down. So made the damper so it's easy to take apart. So you first of all take it off your chair with either your M5 bolts or your 3/16. take off your rod end, your half nut or locking nut, whatever you want to call it. Same the other end. And then what you have in the centre here is the main body. This, what looks like a nut here, this 6-sided hex here, is actually part of this, whereas this nut here is separate. So this one is locked up against this to stop the damper from moving apart. So to undo that, you have, it's 20mm. So when you've got two 20mm spanners or two adjustables, and then in the opposite direction and release them. I didn't do this one up just to make it a little bit easier for this video. Just run that nut down, and you can back that right off, take it completely off, and then you're now going to unscrew the main body. There's nothing in here that's going to spring out at you, disappear across your front room or wherever you're doing it. Then the main body slides off, and then the push rod with the spring on it comes out, and then inside here, you see it in there, there's another little aluminium spacer. Just get that out. There we go. So that would be on there like that. So this is how the steering damper looks when it's completely stripped down. Now over time, the grease can get harder, you collect dust and everything else, all that sort of thing. So every now and again, you need to break it down to this stage, and then just give everything a good wipe. If it's really dirty inside, a bit crusty, give it a good wipe, get all the old grease off of it, so it's back to this stage where there's no grease on it at all. Clean the spacers up, and then make sure it's clean through here as well. There's a bushing in the end there, the guide bushing, which slides up and down the main shaft here. And also in there, give it a good wash out. You can use pretty much anything you want really. You're not going to damage any of this. You could use acetone, brake cleaner, soapy water, anything like that. Just make sure that it's completely free of everything that you cleaned it with before you put the new grease on. Grease wise, just use your general grease that you would use for bearings in bike wheels, that sort of thing. You can get it from well, any bike shop really. Smear the grease all over the spring. This spacer, which doesn't have the flange on the top like this one, so this one we call that the top hat. This one isn't, it's just a plain tube. So that then goes back in the tailpiece. This part, which will have all your grease on it, slide it back into there. The top hat spacer goes over this end, and then your main body, which will be the bit that's got the writing on it, slides over the top. Screw them together. Your locking nut goes back on. And your half nuts. Don't forget this end is a left-handed thread, so the opposite direction to what you would normally do. This is your right-handed thread, so your normal direction. You screw the top on the bottle. Right, now the other difference with this one, which differs from a lot of the other dampers, is you can adjust out the play. It's only a mechanical device, so at some point you will have play in it, but you can adjust that out. So you would, when this is on your chair, if you found that you had play here, so if you moved the push rod, so what I'll do is I'll tighten it up too much, So now you see, if you found that it was getting to the point where you had movement like this, so you got movement here, which should be rock solid. So if you find at any point that you were starting to get movement like this, then what you would do, use your 2 adjustable spanners or your 2 20mm spanners, separate these, and then you can wind out this body. So if it's too far out, you'll have play, and if it's too far in, you would also have play. So you screw the main body together, and then you'll feel the spring make contact with the top hat spacer, which is this end, and then the normal tube spacer, which is at this end. So screw them together until you find that they just start to touch, and then just a tiny bit more. Then if you feel it, you have no play there at all. And then it's just a case of not moving this, bring the lock nut up, and then with 2 spanners, one this side, one on here, little twist. It doesn't have to be mega tight, just nip it up, make sure they don't come undone, and then just give it another feel just to make sure it's okay. As long as you've still got no play, then that's it, you've got it sorted. Don't forget to do up your lock nut side to side, so once it's back on the chair, do up your lock nuts and you're ready to go. So hope that's useful to you. If anyone has any more questions, send us an email, get in contact with us, and we'll do our best to help you out. Thanks very much.